100%, this is your sign. This is your time to be debt free. If you were looking for a sign, this is it. It's your time to be debt free. It's £25,000 worth of debt, and I came out of it in 2 years. We're trying to fill a hole with consuming stuff. Hi, I'm Tara. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for choosing to watch my video today. And as you can see by today's title, it's quite a biggie. Let's get right into the video. So, as you can see, the title of today's video is the first steps to becoming debt free. So I'm going to be doing a slight theme on this channel just for the month of January, where it's almost clean slate stuff, stuff to really get you prepared for like a new year, reaching some goals, smashing your, I was gonna say smashing your targets. I don't work in sales anymore, but you know what I mean. That just the theme of January is to just hopefully to help you get set up for a new year in different ways, different areas, etc. And today's video is actually a big one, and it's to do with debt. As you've seen, I actually, when I started my debt-free journey, I am debt-free now, £0 in debt. But when I started my debt-free journey, I actually also started it at the beginning of a year. It was 2020. Yeah, it was the beginning of was it 2020? Because of the pandemic and stuff like that, there's a whole time frame that it could have been any year, or was it 2019? I don't remember. It was either 2019 or 2020, but I started it at the beginning of the year. And yeah, I just wanted to help get you guys started as well. So I'm going to keep most of this is going to be generic in regards to, it won't really matter what country you're from, but some of it might be a bit more specific because I went through my journey in the UK. So there's some stuff that's in the UK that I'm going to speak about that I'm not sure if, depending on where you are watching this video, if it will be something that's available to you as well. But yeah, I will obviously try my best to keep most of it as generic, but I'm pretty sure in most Western countries anyway, I can't really speak for the other ones, I'm pretty sure in most Western countries that you'll probably have similar resources that just maybe different names or whatever, but I believe you should have similar resources. I'm not sure. But anyway, without further ado, let's get right into the video. So the very first thing, and yes, I'm going to sound like a broken record, is admitting that you have a problem. Because debt isn't something that just happens overnight. It's actually something that's extremely hard to start tackling because there's a whole mindset that goes around debt accumulation that some people don't actually talk about really when they are talking about finances and they're talking about becoming debt free. People simply just obviously tell you, oh yeah, you need to be debt free, these are the methods you can do it. But I'm still actually yet to see a video, then again I'm sure it exists, I just haven't seen it yet, where somebody talks about actually figuring out the underlying reasons first and foremost of why you're in debt. So one, it's obviously figuring out that you are in debt. That's the first step. But the second step is then coming to terms with that. So process that, figure out why you've gotten into debt. Look at it and be honest, right? Be honest with yourself, because one thing that I did, and I'm going to be honest with you now, is in the beginning, I was lying to myself. I was justifying my debt. I was like, no, I only pay for things that I need. I only da-da-da-da-da-da. That wasn't true. That wasn't true at all. I did pay for things that I needed with debt, which you should actually ironically not be in a position where you're paying for things you need with debt. But not only was I doing that, but I was also buying stuff that I didn't need. Like literally, there was a bunch of wants in there. There was things that I would buy and never even use. And for me, a big of a big underlying thing was, and I think you hear this a lot. I was genuinely trying to fill a hole with consuming stuff. I was trying to fill a hole with capitalism that just was never going to get filled by capitalism, because that's not what the main issue was. But this was my way of trying to solve that, both consciously and subconsciously. A lot of it was subconscious, because there's a lot of things now you could even ask me, well, what did you buy? There's things I can pinpoint and say, okay, yeah, these things were definitely culprits. But I also have a bunch of things where I'm like, I genuinely couldn't tell you how it got quite to the amount that it got to. And part of that reason is when you find yourself with bad debt, because that's what it was. I wasn't owning houses and stuff. It was just bad debt. So when you find yourself with bad debt, you end up almost being in this vicious cycle, depending on how deep in it you are, where you're now using debt to pay off your other debt. So you're just in this perpetual cycle of never-ending debt, because you're using debt to pay off other debt, which is putting you in debt. And then that debt you've used to pay off that debt needs to be paid off. So now you need to get more debt to pay off that debt. And it just, honestly, it was just spiraling. It was spiraling. And so I had to stop, take stock, figure out, okay, first of all, you have a spending problem, you have a debt problem. Step one. Step two, what is actually the reason behind that? Why are you doing these things? Because I can tell you now, if you don't do step two, which is taking stock, which is figuring out why, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to end up back in the same place. Because I don't know how many stories there has to be of people that literally did the work, get out of debt, and then once that challenge is done, have slowly but surely gotten laxed again and have just gone back into the same habits that they were into before. And it's because they didn't actually take stock of why they ended up where they ended up with the debt. They just realized that they had it and solved it, but then didn't actually get to the crux of why. So there's different ways you can do this. You can either do the work by yourself, of course, figuring that out if you think you can. But I would 100% suggest therapy. Therapy is for a bunch of different reasons. As we all know now, I don't think it's a subject that a lot of people don't know about anymore, especially if you're online on YouTube and stuff like that. But yeah, therapy, honestly. I'm not a therapist, so I won't say any more than that. But therapy, and if you can't do therapy, like I said, because it's not accessible to everybody, it's not affordable for everybody, then do some of your own inner work. But be honest with yourself. If you're going to do self-guided ones, I'm sure there's a bunch of self-guided things out there you can actually do. But be honest with yourself. Genuinely be honest with yourself. Because this is an exercise you're doing with you, so there's no reason to lie, right? So those are the most important steps. In my opinion, the most important. Like, the most important. And then now, when it actually comes to doing the actual work itself, there's a bunch of different methods you can choose. You can choose, the most common one and the most popular one, and it's popular for a reason, is the snowball one, which you basically start with the biggest interest rate, and you knock that one off first, and then you do it in that order until obviously the one with the least. That's an option you can do. Or the option that I went for was doing everything all at once. So not all at once in the sense that I had just one big check and I paid off all my debt. I wish. I just mean it wasn't just concentrating on one. It was concentrating on all of them as one amount. However, the allocations within that were different, but I didn't have to do this part. So this is the advice that I hope, even though mine will be specific to the UK, I do hope that whatever country you're watching this in, you guys have your own options and your own choices around this. And this was, I went to a debt charity. So if you're in the UK, the specific one that I used was Step Change. And when we say debt charity, guys, I mean they literally do not take a single cut. They don't even take a penny from what, I actually don't know how they get funded. Is it I think it's government funded. I'm not 100% sure, but they don't take a penny from you at all. Not even a cent, not even a cut. I do actually want, I need to find out how they do what they do, because if they're not government funded, I genuinely feel like I need to send them a thank you check or something, because honestly, I don't know if I would have been able to do this without them. So I did it through them. So if you're not doing it through a charity, I'm going to say it both ways. If you're not going to do it through a charity, do it like this. If you're going to do it by yourself, right? So gather all of your debt in one place, whether you want to like put it in an Excel sheet, write it down, like however you want to do it. Gather all of your debts, so all of your creditors, whether it's your credit card, loans, cars, like whatever debt you have, no matter how insignificant, even if it's just a couple of hundred, put it all down. And then at the bottom, you will have your figure, that is your debt figure that you have. And writing it all down is actually part of it. I know you can just go to your credit file and get all of this information, but no, write it down, because there's something about you physically writing it down and having to do that research and having to look for it and having to do the calculation yourself. It's step one in there. It does something to you that just getting this information downloaded from somewhere is not going to have the same type of effect. It's like psychological, but you almost realize just how pertinent it is as you're writing it down. I don't know how to describe it because it's a feeling, but just write it down and you'll see what I mean. Just trust me with that one, all right? Then once you've done all of that, organize it and basically figure out which one has the highest percentage, like interest rate. Figure that out, then put it in order. Then once you've got that on the side, then on something separate, again, be honest and find something online, by the way, because there's things that you won't think about at all when it comes to things that you spend on that are actual needs and things that are priority. There's a lot of things in that list that you won't think of. So Google it even, I would say. But just basically a list of priority finances, a list of priority expenses for the average person. So obviously it'll be stuff like your groceries, it'll be stuff like, your rent, your bills, but your internet, even your subscriptions, even the clothes you buy, like all these things are stuff that you may not think of. So just make sure you get a list from online. It's just easier to have an average expenses list for a human being, if that's what you want to type in. So once you have all of that, write down the figures that obviously match that for yourself. Again, make sure you are being honest and brutal. And you're going to need to do this list twice, because after you've done it the first time, I need you to do it again, but this time be stricter. So for instance, if under clothes per month, you had $100, it's like, do you need $100 worth of clothes a month? Do you? I don't think that you do. One could argue one doesn't need to buy clothes every month. Why that's even on a list, I don't know, but that's actually on a list of a lot of essentials for people. I get it. We all have different shopping habits. But be honest with yourself. Do you need $100 a month for clothes? You probably don't. I would put 0 down. I actually stopped buying clothes at the time that I did this for myself. I genuinely stopped buying clothes. I've not really bought any new clothes except for randomly when I needed flip-flops or randomly when I needed new underwear, things like that. But I've not like gone shopping or browsed online shopping things. Like I just don't do that anymore unless it's a need. But yeah, be honest with yourself. This $100 on clothes, do I actually need it every month? No, probably not. You probably do not need that every month. So that can be cut down. Whether you want to average it out and say, okay, so rather than 100 every month. I'll treat myself to something that I can get like £15, let's say. I'll put £15 a month instead. Little things like that. Stuff like your subscriptions. I was going to say prescriptions. Don't scrimp on your prescriptions. Please get your prescriptions. Subscriptions. If you've got Hulu, Netflix, Prime, Apple, Disney, like, you know, you've got 5 streaming services. You can probably say, you know, Apple is pretty similar to Disney, so maybe I'll get rid of Disney. Okay, that was a bad example because Disney and Apple are not similar at all. But you know what I mean? Like, out of those 5, you can probably say, okay, I've got kids, so let me keep the Disney one and Netflix. Or, I'm a bit sick of Netflix now, if I'm being honest, so let me keep Disney and Apple. Also, be honest with yourself, because when you have all those streaming services, I guarantee you that there's a few that you do not really utilize that much at all, but we just like to have the option. Get rid of some of them. So that's what I mean by you're going to make this list twice, because you're going to make this list with what you're doing now, and then you want to do this with realistic amounts that you can, that makes sense for the situation that makes sense for somebody that's trying to pay off debt, right? That's what you always need to be remembering, is your priority is now paying off this debt. So now once you have that list, so you have your list of your essential expenses that you need just to be a functioning human being, and then now you have your list for your debt on this side, and you have your number. So you're now going to look at your income, all of your streams of income. Hopefully, if you have more than one, obviously if you have one, then just that one, but that's what you're going to look at now. And that's when you're going to figure out these two numbers. So you're going to see, okay, so I get let's say £1,000 a month, and once I've done all of these things on this essential, I've got like to spare, because remember, on that essential, that's your groceries, that even entertainment needs to be on that essentials list. Like entertainment, everything basically needs to be on that list that you will be paying for. Nothing more from this list should be paid for, so including savings, by the way. So this is another controversial thing with me, is a lot of people say when you're paying off debt, you shouldn't be putting aside anything, because you should just be concentrating on paying off debt. This, for me, was just a little bit too much on the risky side. So I decided that I did want to put, no matter how little it was aside, I wanted to put something aside. So I wasn't literally just left on zero, like I pay off debt and then I'm starting everything else from scratch. So I was still putting aside whatever I could, while I was paying off my debt. I included it in my essentials, the savings part. I think I literally only accounted for like $100 or something like that, and that $100 will be split between a few small investments here and there, and like a savings, like an emergency savings. So I decided to do that, but it's completely up to you if you just completely want to concentrate on the paying off debt and forgetting the savings for now. But once you now have those two figures, you have how much you get paid, how much your expenses are, the amount that's left over is now the amount that you can put towards paying off that debt. So it's quite simple actually when you do it. It sounds complicated when you're discussing it and you're thinking about it and whatever, but doing it is actually not that complicated at all. It gives you a very black and white realistic figure of what you can pay to those debts, you know, that one amount. But remember that this one amount that you have here needs to cover all of these debts. So once you're in there, so remember all of this stuff that I'm saying, you can do by yourself, but I did through the Step Change charity. You just went online and it was all laid out for you. You just filled stuff in. So if you're not doing it by the charity, you can do it yourself. I will actually create at some point the list for you. I think just to make this easier, I'll create a list for you, like in an Excel, in a Google Drive or something that you guys can just click on, download and use for yourself. I may even use yeah, I may just use the one that I used for myself exactly if I can find it. But just so you guys already have that on there and you're not having to start from scratch or figure it out. And I'll link it in the description of this video. So yeah, actually I will do that. I not might. I'm in this video, I will do it for you. So you can just download it free. Like it shouldn't take me too long to do, hopefully. But either way, just download it so you have your expenses. I won't do the creditor one because that's simply you just writing your creditor, writing how much, writing your creditor, writing how much. But I'll do the list for you. Okay, and I'll link that for you in the description. So once you've done all these things, then now it's then up to you once again how you tackle that. So you can either consolidate all of your debt into one, so you know you're just paying that one figure to it, or you can decide yourself again if you want to do that snowball thing. You can, at this stage, you can still do the snowball thing where you're tackling the highest interest rate first and then going that way. Or if you're doing it all together, you can still do it all together. Prioritize how you want to do it, or just treat it all equally. But the only way to treat it all equally is to consolidate, because yeah, once you consolidate, it's easier to do. For me, the consolidation was done for me because I was step change was my consolidation. So the creditors were all still separate and all of that stuff, and were being paid separately by step change. But for me, it was just one figure that was coming out, going to step change, and then they were doing the allocation and the pay-in. But if you're doing it for yourself, you could still do essentially the same thing. But if you're doing it yourself, I would say consolidate, just because it's easier to deal with one amount. I'm not going to be expert enough to now start saying, okay, I dig into all of them and do all this extra stuff. This is just basically the simplest way to make sure that you will actually become debt-free. The simplest way, the easiest, most straightforward. You don't need a degree in finance to freaking figure it out. It's straightforward that way, right? And then those are not all the steps. Those are not all the steps. Once you're there, once you've either consolidated, you're going through the charity, or you're snowballing, or whatever method you've now decided to do to tackle that, you have to actually let the people around you know, because the way you live is going to change. I need you to realize that. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want to pretend. I don't want to lie. It will change, and it has to, because clearly the way you were living before is what got you into debt. So our life is going to look different now because we're not doing that debt stuff anymore. And the easiest way to do this, and again, I only advise the way that I did things because I know it works, because I did it and it worked for me. So I will only ever be advising from my perspective, just as a disclaimer. Text all your friends, your family, whoever you hang out with, and let them know. Let them know, because remember, we're doing this the actual way that will work, the actual way that will stick, the actual way that will even change how you look and think about these things, because it's a whole mindset thing. You didn't get into debt without a particular mindset, right? And getting out of it means changing that mindset. And let the people around you know. Honestly, I sent a text to my friends letting them know that for the foreseeable future, this is what I was doing. I was concentrating on paying off my debt. That was my priority. So therefore, some of the things that we used to do regularly, I wouldn't be able to do. If we could figure out cheaper and more fun ways to do things, like I literally said that in the text, and my friends were understanding. This is why you need certain people in your life. My friends were like, of course, that makes sense. Thank you for letting us know. And they respected that. They would still invite me to things, but I had no qualms with turning around and going, oh, hey, that's actually a little bit over my budget for this month. So unfortunately, I can't do that, but it would be great if I could see you guys at my place for drinks after blah, blah, blah. Like, whatever it may be, I would make it work for me. But I made sure to announce it to the people that I spent time with, to the people that I spent money with, so they would be aware. And I not only did I do that, I, of course, wrote myself a very strict budget that I stuck to. And you have to, because if you don't, you're going to keep being in the same cycle. Your mindset won't change. You honestly have to change the way you look at a lot of things. You have to get out of this mindset of constantly, oh, I'm going to treat myself. Well, I work hard, so I'm going to treat myself. Yes, treat yourself, but don't treat yourself if you're treating yourself with a credit card. Like, don't do it. And speaking of credit cards, cut them up. Literally, not everybody can use credit cards the way they're supposed to be used, right? People use the excuse of, I'm trying to build my credit, da 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 da. But you're not if you're not paying off that credit card every month. And you're not paying off that credit card any month if you're in debt. So if you're watching this video and you're getting advice on how to get out of debt, cut up your credit cards, because we are not credit card people. Okay? Now I am, but I've been on this journey for like over 2 years now, and like I said, I'm debt free, and I had a £25,000 worth of debt. I forgot to say that in the beginning. £25,000. I paid it off in 2 years. Being this strict, by the way, being this strict. I should have put this in the beginning of the video. Yeah, being this strict, £25,000 worth of debt, and I came out of it in 2 years. 2 years. £25,000 to zero. So when I'm saying these things, I'm saying it out of passion, and I'm saying it out of knowing, because I was there too. But yeah, the way you think about money, the way you think about rewards and all this, it has to change, because yeah, this is what got us into this situation in the first place. So I want to say all the steps together, just so we can remember, and I'll put them on screen if I can. So number one, admit that you have a problem. You have to admit it, because you do. You do. Number two, figure out why. Why is it that I'm in debt? How did I get here? What are the underlying reasons that I spend the way I do? What are the underlying reasons for me to be here? And it could be just as shallow as you don't want to look like you don't have money to the people around you, so you do things to look like you've got money. It could just be as shallow as that, or it could be a lot deeper. It could be, you didn't grow up with much, so now when you've got the opportunity, you want to give yourself everything you want. It could be that. It could be anything. But that's step two, is you need to figure out your why. You need to process that. You need to work through it. You need to figure it out. Step three is the consolidation of everything, like putting everything down in paper. What are your debts? How much are they? What are your expenses? How much are they? Then dwindling that down to the critical, not just your wants or whatever, but your criticals. And remember, your criticals also include things that make you feel good, things that you remember that you're a person and not just a robot. But we also need to be strict with those. And then while we're in that, So once we've done that and we're figuring all that out, then we figure out how much we've got to put towards our debt. Then step four, we create a budget. We create a strict budget that we stick to. We do not go above or beyond unless we're like literally in emergencies, and they have to be real emergencies, not emergencies you want to be an emergency because you want to spend money. Real emergencies, but strict budget, strict budget. And then step five is changing your mindset, which means tell the people around you what you're doing. Tell them what your priorities are. Literally, mindset. Your mindset completely has to change. The way you view money, the way you look at money and debt and all of that, it needs to change. And within that, by the way, within that five, the one thing I forgot to say is the education. But but the education is all of this. It's constantly happening. You need to educate yourself around finances. You need to educate yourself around debts, good debts, bad debts, all of these things. It's all an education, because you wouldn't have ended up even here if the education around finances wasn't there. But it's up to you, because obviously we're not learning it in school, are we? So it's up to us to teach ourselves these things and to learn not teach ourselves, to learn these things. There's YouTube videos, there's a bunch of stuff out there. There's not really any excuse in this day and age for people to not pick up on some of these skills or lack of knowledge that we had. We really don't have much of excuses anymore. But those are my top tips and steps really into getting out of debt in 2023. You have to be brutal with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself, but it's doable. I did it. If I can do it, honestly, who am I? Who am I? I'm just Tara on the internet. Literally, I'm just Tara on the internet. I'm just another human being walking around. If I can do it, millions of other people can do it. You can do it too. 100%. This is your sign. This is your time to be debt free. If you were looking for a sign, this is it. It's your time to be debt free. Okay, I don't want to ramble anymore. I want to end this video so you can go and start these processes straight away. Thank you so much for giving me your attention today. Thank you so much for choosing to watch my video today. Please like the video if you liked it. Subscribe and turn those notifications on so you can know when I post more videos. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in my next one. Love, light, and being debt free. Bye.